right, so rising credit stress. It's a problem, isn't it? Placing a lot of pressure on middle-class South Africans, especially in this particular report. The report I'm talking about is the 2022 Credit Stress Report. I had no idea there was a report on this, but here it is. It's released strategy, analytics, and a research company 80/20. It's in collaboration with Xpert Decision Systems. So a lot of detail going into this, a lot of analytics. The report shows some alarming trends in the four most credit active South African segments in South Africa. So what are those credit active segments? Well, let's find out and hear from 820 Director Andrew Fulton joining us this morning. Andrew, morning to you. Have I said 820 correctly? I feel like there's a more hipster way of saying this.
80/20, yeah, the Pareto principle.
Wonderful. Let's talk about the report now. So these four segments that we are talking about, how do we know that we are more stressful according to this report?
So what we've done is we've taken the credit bureau data and we've fused it to other data sets and then created a segmentation of all adult South Africans, 8 segments. And then the 4 wealthier segments are, we call them the mass credit market, the middle class, the heavy hitters, and the comfortable retirees. So those are the 4 wealthier segments in South Africa. And between the two of them, the middle class and the heavy hitters, they can control about 90% of all home loans and car loans in the country. And those are the ones that are coming under stress in this new interest rate environment that we're experiencing right now.
When we talk about the environment, excuse me, are there targets, are there indicators, are there markers along the stress indicators? What is actually stressing most people out? I mean, I suppose we can talk about just the economy, but that's a bit broad, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the tweet that really kind of encapsulates the situation is that if you think about most of 2021, we had the lowest interest rate environment we've had in a generation, 7% prime lending rate. So, if I had a 25, 30-year-old daughter, I would have told her to buy a house. And let's say she bought a house in Cape Town, 1.5 million rand, which only gets you a 1-bedroom in the city bowl right now, or maybe a 2-bedroom in Rondebosch. She would have bought that property, and a year later, she would have had to find more than 3,000 rand a month just to keep that property, just to pay those installments on that one loan. And she may have also had a car loan. If you're in the upper class, you might have 2 car loans. So that's really where a lot of the pressure is coming. And that kind of encapsulates it in the most easy to understand terms.
I'm glad you brought in the talk about owning a flat or an apartment or property just in general as well, because I see, according to the report as well, the middle-class worker, strongly aspirational, but now property, as you mentioned, might be a little out of reach. But I see opting to rather own a vehicle, at least trying to get some kind of assets in the end. Is that what that's telling me?
Yeah, I mean, look, South Africans love their cars. And what we've been shocked at is if you look at the total loan debt on vehicles, it's for the middle class, it's 55% of the total loan debt on houses. So maybe not the wisest decisions in what assets to purchase, but it speaks to, if I look at my employees, for instance, they perhaps can't buy a house in a neighborhood they want to live in. So they get a nicer car and at least have some assets. But yeah, that middle class is sitting on about 20% of all home and car loans. And one of the metrics we use to look at stress is debt that's gone newly into default this quarter. So if we look at like current loan balances that have gone into default this quarter for the middle class, that's gone up by nearly 19%. So it's a worrying indicator kind of where things are going and what we might be in store for us. Because if you think about this debt, it's long-term debt. So it takes a little bit of time for it to work into default. But yeah, certainly some stress with those 4.5 million middle-class South Africans.
I think you're looking almost into a crystal ball, aren't you, Andrew? Because prime lending rate increased by 3.25% just in the last year or so. We're expecting another 25 basis points increase. I think it's come February or March as well. And that's where you're quite right. It's not the short-term loans. Even a car is 5 years. A home is 20 years as well. When we start seeing the trends, do we start seeing stress levels peak? Do we see a spike every time the Reserve Bank comes out with an announcement?
Well, not so much exactly when the Reserve Bank, when that comes out, because there's that lag in how long it takes those loan products to go into default. And as you said, unsecured debt, lenders would have scaled that back because they realized we're getting into a more risky environment, and they would have released less unsecured debt into the market. But those long-term contracts, they stick with you for, as you mentioned, many, many years. So they're harder to get out. But yeah, so we track this index. We call it the new in default index every quarter, and we release this report every quarter to kind of just track how that's going and give a bit of an early indication of where things might be headed. I mean, look, the economy did grow this last quarter, which was unexpected, and so that is good news. But yeah, look, if we can keep the lights on, we hopefully it'll reduce some of that stress so we can earn some money.
Yeah, just to help me understand as well. So 75% makes up this middle class workers segment as well. That's an awful number of people who are earning fairly good salaries, Andrew, but really, if I'm interpreting this correctly, and please correct me if I don't have it right, they're essentially living off credit, aren't they? And this is a bubble that's going to burst.
Yeah. So yeah, for that middle class, I mean, you're looking at people that are making sort of 10,000 plus. And what's shocking, a lot of people don't realize about South Africa is if you make a personal salary of 10,000 plus, you're in the top 10% of earners in this country. That's kind of how skewed the economy is and how skewed earnings income is. If you look at the middle class, on average, 2/3 of that salary is going to debt repayments, just servicing the debt. So if you're making 10,000 rand, 6,600 is going just to paying whatever debt you've got, be it a car loan, a home loan, or secured. So then you've got a few thousand left to be feeding your family, clothing your family, going out for entertainment and buying Christmas presents.
Just very briefly, Andrew, I just want to try and wrap this up and answer the question of, okay, so what? What does the report say about what does need to be done? Does it give any guidance or just the stats? Because it sounds like the middle income earners need to start getting rid of those credit cards to me.
Yeah. I mean, the credit card debt's gone up 12% this year for overall in South Africa. And so what we're realizing is a lot of people are paying for things. They're doing the minimum balance on their credit card and just expanding that debt, which is going to catch up. And it's a catch-22. I mean, the government needs to keep raising interest rates in order to get inflation under control, because if you think about inflation, this interest rate is only affecting really, let's say, 5 million South Africans. The inflation is affecting the other 55 million because of the food increases in food prices, petrol prices, transport, just basic living. So we try not to do crystal ball gazing, but what we like to do is show the stats, track the index over time, and then just put that out for people to understand. But yeah, people are going to be, certainly those with debt are going to be under stress for the next.
And the problem is there. A lot of people have the debt, Andrew. And this is exactly the problem. And it's been fascinating. Wow, I wish we had more time, Andrew. It's really been wonderful to hear from you. And it's going to be even tougher, isn't it? So you can hear the numbers, you can hear the data. Numbers don't lie.